We're going to start with the World Cup, Club World Cup. I also have Club World Cup. That comes first. With the draw that we saw today, obviously, Inter Miami, we know that's going to be one of our main focal points here, Perk. But when it comes to all these groups that we saw, do you think Seattle Sounders is the one who drew the toughest group there in Group B?
El grupo de la muerte, without a doubt. I mean, listen, some interesting groups, but when you look at the Sounders group, you got Botafogo. They actually lead the Brazilian Serie A right now. You've got Atletico Madrid, which is a La Liga candidate any time of the year, and especially just a difficult team to play against, especially how they play under Cholo Simeone. And PSG, who run the table in France, and we know has the wallet at any given time to open up that wallet, and they have 2 transfer windows to do it, to set themselves up nicely in this tournament. I don't care how much the Seattle Sounders can change or them playing at home. You look at the rest of the teams in this tournament, there are some very good teams here. That's a very strong group. And I know there's a lot of caveats and asterisks about the timing of this tournament and the type of players that can come, but certainly for the Seattle Sounders, this is as worse of a group as you can get, or you could see it as an opportunity. The Seattle Sounders, the Seattle in general, is gearing up for a 2026 World Cup, position. It could be a great chance to showcase a great city of Seattle, to showcase a team unlike the other Major League Soccer team that earned their way into this tournament, make some smart, savvy signings as they tend to do, fix problems up front, because we know they're defensively good. We know that Stephen Fry is the best postseason goalkeeper in Major League Soccer history, but certainly when you play at the next level, you've got to have more quality, especially going forward, because the 1 or 2 chances that you do have, you have to make the most of them. So it's going to be interesting, but when I look at this tournament on paper, I think Seattle has the hardest road to get out of the group.
You were talking about how this is an opportunity for them. What do they have to prove, considering that they're in, as you said, El Grupo de la Muerte?
Well, the interesting thing about the Seattle Sounders is, and listen, this is a tournament with very little history.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember the first tournament where Necaxa, the CONCACAF representative, made it to the 3rd place game when they played Manchester United. There was a great set of, I think Vasco da Gama was there with Edu El Animal, a great set of teams. But I'm also present enough to remember me playing in this said tournament. There's not a lot of history with it. My tournament, my Club World Cup was, I believe, 8 teams. And sometimes you played in front of thousands, but it's not like tens of thousands or getting near 100,000. I'm talking about thousands. There was very little interest with this tournament. So you're in the United States, and there's going to be plenty of interest with the star power you have in these teams, the name brand that you have in these teams. If you're Seattle Sounder, one of the very few teams with actual history in American soccer, NASL, USL, Major League Soccer, and you've been successful, this is a great way of showcasing your brand, a great way of showcasing your city. And I think they've got enough talent to surprise. It'd be very difficult right here, right now, to see this team on paper, what they have, and say they can make a dent in this group, especially knowing what these groups or these teams have in this group and what they could potentially have come this tournament. So it'll be very, very difficult. They got an opportunity to represent themselves, represent the city, and represent Major League Soccer in a dignified manner. Yeah,
and speaking of MLS representation, and I don't know if this was a knock on Inter Miami, you saying that Seattle actually earned their way into the tournament.
Oh, it absolutely is a knock. And it's also a knock on Gianni Infantino. This is a made-up tournament that he's trying to compete with UEFA for the Champions League, a little slice of that pie, or even the whole pie, if you will. They want some of that
Good
money.
luck.
And it's no surprise that on the 11th hour, they announced that there's a sponsor, there's a TV deal, and it's no surprise that that sponsor is reported to be Saudi Arabia, the team that FIFA will, guess what, hand out and gift a World Cup to. They will host a World Cup in the future. So you can connect the dots and see where this is going. The little interest that is shown globally, I believe they have a streaming partner, but it won't be shown on network TV. It won't be shown on actual linear television. So it should tell you the interest worldwide for it right now. The players have complained about the calendar. The teams have complained about the calendar. It's a made-up tournament that's thrown into an already congested calendar, making things worse. There's another tournament, which is actually a Confederations tournament, which is Gold Cup, played at the same time on the opposite coast. You can say whatever you want about the value of the Gold Cup, and that is valid, whatever you may think of it. But you just made up the UEFA Nations League. You just made up the CONCACAF Nations League, and now you're going to throw this tournament in and saturate the calendar even more. And we spoke about the Saudi Arabia World Cup last show and how that's already congested the calendar from Qatar, and it's going to continue to congest the calendar going forward. Now you're going to make this tournament up that people have shown you not to really care about and expect us to believe it means something. That's a difficult thing. Going to Inter Miami, what that means to it, well, that's another reason. Here's a team that has no business being here, but has arguably the world's greatest player ever in Lionel Messi.
Well, they have business, right? Of
and that's
being
it.
there.
And if that's what you're going for, fine. But don't expect us to believe it was based on merit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you've said as well with the attractiveness of this tournament. And Gianni Infantino is trying to do business as best as he can.
Status quo for FIFA, right?
I mean, and a big part of that is Lionel Messi, who you just mentioned. And it's interesting that you're wearing this shirt today, too. Because honestly,
Maradona.
Inter Miami.
That was his Maradona.
Yeah. Inter Miami has a lot to prove when it comes to MLS. Shield winners, fine. But when it comes to now the Club World Cup, how likely do you see them finishing first in this group?
You know what? I did like a little in my head ranking of where I thought these groups, these CONCACAF teams were in their group, and immediately I'm thinking Inter Miami has probably the most accessible group. And then I go in there and I'm doing the homework, and it's, Palmeiras, they're second in the Brazilian league right now. That's going to be a tough test. Porto, certainly not the Porto of old, but that's because you got Sporting who's taking over Portugal, but they're second in Portugal as well. And then I'm thinking, Aquila, this is a team that they're always in the Club World Cup, this Egyptian team. And they're top 3 right now in the Egyptian league, and they're a formidable team. We've seen plenty of CONCACAF opponents bow out at the Club World Cup to this very team. And I'm starting to think, man, I've got a sensation, unless they change things, unless we see something from a very thinly resumed Javier Mascherano, they have the opportunity to be embarrassed because there's only 2 home teams in this tournament. It's the Seattle Sounders and it's Inter Miami. And Inter Miami is going to open up against this Egyptian team to kick off this tournament. And all we know, listen to this, all we know is they are going to kick off the tournament. They will play in Miami. We don't know about what anywhere else is going to play, anybody else is going to play. We don't know about the crosses. We don't know any of this stuff. We just know they will play here. So it's already being kind of tailor-made, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that FIFA is saying we want this team to go on to the second round to get as far as they can at all costs, but it sure would be good business.
They don't want to. They need.
I don't know if
Inter
they
Miami
need to.
How? Why not? Why not?
Why not? Because of the Inter Miami.
If you're trying to attract fans and trying to sell them on this tournament,
what's going to sell you more? Real Madrid City or Inter Miami versus I don't know. Let's say Chelsea, okay?
But it's Messi. We've seen the Messi effect, especially in the United States.
I know, but there is something bigger than Messi, and that is a Real Madrid. That is these brand names. Messi is arguably the biggest name you can have, but no player is bigger than a team. And Barcelona proved that with Messi because they shipped him out. He is arguably the greatest brand name for a player you can have here. And they bent over backwards to bring him in. I understand that, and I understand how good he is and the value of Messi, but I don't think it trumps these other teams with history and with brand name. Yeah,
but you can't guarantee that both Real Madrid and City are going to bring their most important players.
They'll get a lot. True, and that's another problem here, is they're trying to sell us on a tournament. And the more and more I think about it and start racking my brain, I start thinking, well, maybe Inter Miami does have a chance here because all these other teams are going to come at the end of their season. The Champions League final is 2.5 weeks before this tournament kicks off. So you're either coming off the Champions League final if you're a good team or inactivity. So you're in your off season. And who's not in their off season? That would be Lionel Messi and that would be Inter Miami. So they've got that going for themselves. Who doesn't have to travel? That would be Lionel Messi and that would be Inter Miami. They are playing at home. Who's going to have that home support? That's also going to be Messi and friends because, as you said, that's a massive, massive draw. But the more I think about this, regardless of them being in season and the other players maybe not, or who may not show up, I can't, with good faith here, after watching them bow out to Atlanta United in a best-of-3, tell you, I think they will get out of this group, let alone first place out of this group. I'm not doing that. Like, who's gonna put their hard-earned quincena, that check that they earn every 15 days on Inter Miami getting out of first place in this group? Nobody. Absolutely nobody.
So Inter Miami or Seattle Sounders to round out our MLS chat when it comes to Club World Cup. Who do you see making it further?
Because of the group, you would have to say it's Inter Miami.
Yeah. Only because of the group.
Only because of the group. Okay. I trust the Seattle Sounders more in a tournament. I really do, regardless of what we've seen from them in the just historically. They're that team. They're a gritty defensive team. But I'll tell you what, Seattle versus Atletico Madrid on a turf field, that's going to be a tough watch.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a mirror match, if you will, and a very tough watch.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if, I mean, I don't want to get into if they'll allow turf fields to get into this tournament, but when it comes to injuries, I'm sure that'll be a concern with the bigger clubs.
Hopefully we won't get to that case.
Yeah.
But all signs point to yes. The best players in the world are going down, dropping like flies right now with this congested schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Congested schedule that will be for the Liga MX teams as well. Which leads me to this next question. Which Liga MX team has the best chance to advance for you? León, Monterrey, Pachuca?
Well, it's not your Monterrey, I'll tell you that much. You got bigger.
Come on, bro.
This is, listen, in all honesty, I think Pachuca got a very tough draw. They got Real Madrid, they've got RB Salzburg, and they've got Al Hilal, which I believe is Neymar's team. Right? It's not an easy draw. And then you look at Monterrey. Monterrey, they're going to dance with La Más Fea too. They've got Inter Milan, which is the best team in Serie A right now, consistently have been the best team for about, 2-3 years. They've been that team. I would say 2 years, right? And then they're also going to have River Plate. Say what you will about Argentine football right now in the moment and how they're not competing with Brazilian football and Libertadores. It's still River Plate.
Yep.
And under Marcelo Gallardo, they got the opportunity to be a different team going forward. The Michelis is gone. They shipped that guy out. Where'd he go? He went to Rayados. So they've got a good chance to be something different, be something new. And then the other team there is Urawa. So those, I don't know much about Urawa. I'm not going to pretend to, but there's enough quality. Urawa? There's enough quality there where I'm hesitant to pick Pachuca or Monterrey as a team that gets...
Okay, so why León?
Well, because of who they're playing against. Let's see. Flamengo is a very good team in Brazil, but they're the third best team in Brazil right now, at least according to the standings. They absolutely could mop the floor with León. I understand. León has the ability to surprise you every so often.
True.
Okay. Chelsea, listen, everybody's high on Liverpool right now, league leaders. Chelsea's in second place. Chelsea's in second place in the Premier League. They're doing something right. I think that's going to be a formidable team, but still a Jekyll and Hyde type of team. You never know what to expect. And then Esperance Sportif de Tunis, sixth place in the Tunisian league. I just think it's more of an accessible road to that second place. On an off day for Flamengo, on a good day for León, I think they're competing for that second place with Flamengo. I think this is the easiest road to get out of a group than Pachuca and Monterrey. And honestly, I would love to say Pachuca, but we've been hearing talks about Guillermo Almada and him saying that, hey, he's on his fourth year with Pachuca right now. That cycle may be closing. It may be time to turn a chapter or end a chapter in this book. And I think that's where they may be. And if that happens, you know what happens with Pachuca. It's 1 or 2 good seasons, and it's reloaded the next season. So we might see a completely different team, and I don't know what to expect.
But maybe we could see the same thing with León, that they're reportedly thinking of selling Jesus Martinez, although I'm sure he would love to see two of his...
You know what? We heard the same interview, and I think that's very deceiving because the words of Jesus Martinez Jr. were to sell the majority of their stock.
Right.
That doesn't mean sell your team. that means seize control.
Yeah.
You still have that team. So I'm very curious about the wording of what he said, the verbiage of what it means for that club's future. I don't think they would concede control. Carlos Slim, who was one of the richest men, if not the richest man in the world at one point, went into business and he was part owner of León, and he could not gain control of León from Grupo Pachuca, from the Martinez family.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there, but it leads me to believe like they will still be involved. So that's one of the smartest groups. It's the group that owns Pachuca and León, one of the smartest groups in Mexico. They have teams abroad. They do good business. They're smart in their sporting decisions. So I wouldn't hold my breath there.
Okay. I'm interested in why you said Rayados have bigger fish to fry than the Club World Cup.
Yeah, because they're down in their first leg right now against San Luis.
Yeah, but they're not prepping the Club World Cup right now.
They're not?
No. Why would they be?
No, listen, here's the thing with the Rayados. You're a diehard Rayados fan.
I am.
Okay. What's their style? What's this team's DNA? Because I get paid to do this for a living, and I cannot tell you what their style is or what their style has been, because the coaches have changed and some of these players have stayed the same. And it's always just great individual names or individual performances, and they seem to let you down collectively when it matters most. And we can go back to the Diego Alonso days, okay? We can go back to,
I'm good.
we can go back to Turco Mohamed. We can go to Victor Manuel Vucetich, Javier Aguirre, Tan Ortiz. The names change, and the failures are always the same. This isn't a team. It's not a collective. It's a bunch of individuals, and I can't, for the life of you, tell you what they play, what is their style. So when you go into a tournament and you're playing against better opposition, that's what carries you through when you're not the more talented team. It's who you are, that identity. Right. And I think they lack that identity. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't think I've ever been more in agreement with you when it comes to Rayados de Monterrey.
Thank you.
Because this is something that we were talking about, the fact that the last true legend leader that was there was Chema Santa.
Right.
And he's
an assistant coach now. I don't know, is he still there?
This was a while ago.
Yeah.
This was a while ago. And I think since the Victor Manuel Vucetich days, which already date back to more than 10 years ago, they just haven't been able to find their balance.
I played against those teams. Those were difficult teams to play against.
And it was a clear identity.
Correct.
The culture is being kind of lost in the mix. So yeah, maybe they do have bigger fish to fry, but this is a team that knows how to play a Club World Cup. This is a team that mentally speaking
they know how to get to a Club World Cup. They know how to get to a Club World Cup. There's historically only one.
But they've given good performances. They've given good performances.
Here or there, but there's only one team that can hang their hat on a good performance at the Club World Cup, and that is Tigres. That's the only team in Mexican football that can say.
I thought we were good.
That's the only team. And honestly, that's the only team in CONCACAF. And there's a reality for it. It's because the opposition that usually gets there is the best of the best. Now, you have an opportunity. You know what? I will argue it's going to be it's going to be harder now. It's going to be more difficult now for a CONCACAF team to make it to a Club World Cup final than it ever was.
True.
Before you were one of 8 teams.
Well, statistically, that's
pretty
obvious.
It's just simple math, right?
Yeah.
You had to win 1 game to make it to a semifinal, win that game, and you're in the final. So you have to win 3 games. Now it's a proper tournament.
Yeah.
It's going to be so much more difficult because if you happen to be Inter Miami, if you happen to be Liga MX, or any team, Monterrey, if you happen to be Rayados de Monterrey, you get out of your group and you do well against Inter and you do well against River, guess what? Manchester City may be waiting for you. Real Madrid may be waiting for you. That's not easy. And if that's who you got in front of you, it's going to be a difficult road.
Yeah, I meant in comparison to León and Pachuca, but of course you have to find a way to bring it back to Tigres.